Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
We definitely see the light. And so,
Yes.
and we've always seen it. And so that's why we've just always been like looking forward to go. So one thing we did is when all the restaurants were closed, we contacted a bunch of restaurants and we had them delivering food to our houses. And so we would you couldn't go to the experience, but we would have the experience brought to you.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
People who are wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared. This is the definition of a true destinationaire. If you've been following the show for a while, you would have recognized that earlier this year of 2020, we did the first ever Destinationaire Award. This award was a huge success with over 50 nominations from around the world. From these nominations, only 5 received the title Destinationaire. In this 3-part series, you're going to hear from 3 of them, Bob, Jessica, and Robin. We're going to learn from what they've done to grow their business and to become a destinationaire, and how they plan to continue to grow and serve our industry and our guests. This is more than just being a hospitality provider or a property manager. This is about offering true experience, creating real moments, and connecting on a deeper level. Now follow along, because this is an experience you will not want to miss. All right, everybody, welcome back to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. A little backstory on this episode. Jessica Albrego, who is now Jessica Hinton, recently married. Super exciting. She actually was on the podcast. We recorded an episode in the beginning of April, kind of the thick and thin of the beginning of COVID. So we never actually published the episode, but we're here to follow up because a lot's happened. Obviously, like I said, she's now married and also one of the Destinationaire winners. So I'm super excited to highlight everything that she's doing. And welcome to the show, Jessica. It's awesome to have you.
Thanks so much, Will. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, let's just dive right in. I want to get into your background. Obviously, you have a pretty intense and crazy cool story with being in the Air Force and then leading into your adventure of starting Barefoot Vacation Rentals. So let's dive in and tell the audience kind of a little bit about you.
So I started, I joined the military in 2005. That's when I graduated high school. And I joined as a refrigeration mechanic. So I can fix pretty much anything that heats or cools. And that path has kind of guided me to the housing world. I love fixing things and repairing things. And so I purchased my first house, and then I went on a trip to actually Mexico, and I stayed in an Airbnb, and I was like, I could totally do this. I got this. And I live in a small little town called Temecula in California. It's kind of like the Southern California of a version of Napa. So we have a bunch of wineries, and I was like, I don't even know if it's going to do well, but I'm just going to try it. And so I started doing it. I was a single mom at the time with my 2 daughters, and we gave it a shot. And we did really good the first year, and then really, really good the second year. And I bought another house in San Diego. And, at first, when I first started, everyone was like, what are you doing? You're crazy. Like, you're going to let strangers in your house? Like, you're absolutely nuts, Then I bought the house in San Diego, and they're like, okay. Now tell me what you're doing. I want to be part of this. What do I have to do? And so then I started helping a ton of friends start. And now they're very successful in doing their short-term rentals. And I was like, I think I'm pretty good at this. I started getting processes in place and checklists. We know the military, and we love checklists and ways of doing things, making sure everything's the same. And so I just used all the skills that I learned in the military to really benefit my business, and just started doing checklists and having processes in place and being able to really take on more homes and be able to manage them well and not and consistent. And
Yeah.
so that's definitely something I learned from the military. So, and then 2018 is when I officially started as Barefoot Vacation Rentals. So I've been running it for a little over just about 2 years officially. And we manage on average between 15 to 20 homes. We're always looking to bring on more. But yeah, that's kind of how I started the story with the military.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the attention to detail and all the checklists and all that type of stuff really does benefit. It drives my
Yeah.
business partners nuts because they're like, "You need to calm down on all this." I'm like, "No, we need to get this structured." It's just kind of a curse, and never late. I'm pretty sure you probably never been late to a meeting.
Okay, so I'm from Hawaii, so
Okay.
that
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
necessarily take place.
yeah.
I'm usually like 5 minutes late for everything, and the military is like, no, you have to be early. I'm like, okay, well, see, I was born in Hawaii, so I had like 25 years of being late was fine.
Yeah.
I've got
You're like,
15 years in the military, which I should be by that point. So now it's not 15, now it's just 5 minutes late.
there you go. There you go. That's better. See, I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's a hard habit to break, but I guess 5 minutes late in Hawaii is on time, so technically you are on time. We'll
I'm
call it
good.
even. We'll call it even. It balances
Yeah.
itself out. Well, I first heard of you from Dave and a couple other people through Rent Responsibly, and that's kind of how I found out about your story with your girls and how your girls are involved in the business, kind of doing reservations and helping fix stuff, and just super involved in the business, which is really cool. And I found really, really unique. Like, I don't think I've ever met anybody else that has their kids involved with dealing with guest issues and helping like fix a sink or do whatever. It's super cool. Have they always just kind of been really involved?
Yeah, being a single mom, I was a single mom for 8 years. So I really had no choice but to use their help. And so sometimes reluctantly they helped, but for the most part, they're joyful and but they're so handy. I mean, there's nothing really they can't do. We were out there, we managed my ex-husband's house, their dad, we managed it as a vacation rental, and his outlets were loose. And so I taught the girls how to shut the breaker off, pull the outlet out, put the new wires in, screw it all back in. And, there's
Wow.
just skills the girls are going to learn forever. Like, they're never going
Yeah.
to forget that. And being a refrigeration mechanic in the Air Force, the girls can we've pretty much installed, most of our homes have the Wi-Fi thermostats.
Hmm.
We did it.
Dang.
Me and the girls, we just go over to the house and we just flip some wires around and put it back on the wall and call it a day, and they're now 11 and 12, but they started off at like 6 and 7. So
Yeah.
it's nothing and I just want them to know that no matter what it is, it doesn't matter if it's building stuff or if it's cooking something, whatever they set their minds to, they can do it.
And I think they're little entrepreneurs in themselves, right? They have a YouTube channel and they do all sorts of other little things.
Oh, they're like, they make me proud,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
So they have that. We haven't done a video in a while just because life has been crazy.
Yeah.
But they have it's called Girls of All Trades on YouTube, so you can go and watch them and see their little videos of how to install a Wi-Fi thermostat.
Awesome.
And then they also started a little dog walking business in town, so they're walking dogs, and one's doing cupcakes every day like clockwork. She makes cupcakes because she wants to master her skill.
Wow.
And I don't have to tell her. I don't have, but now I just have a plethora of cupcakes. So anybody want any, let me know. We'll just send them off.
I was gonna say that probably came really, really handy for the wedding.
Yeah. And they make the birthday cakes. They make like all the friends, everybody's cakes. They make them and stuff. They didn't end up making the wedding cake just because it was a wedding cake. But
That's pretty incredible. So I think that like really goes into the leading experience of just creating an experience in general, right? When you have a business, and we're in hospitality and vacation rentals, especially, it's like your own little hotel, but you have multiple of them, and they're like, when you're occupied, There's no like 30% occupancy at one property. It's 100%.
100%.
Yes. But then you spread out, you have 15 of them, so you can have, out of your 15, 7. So it's kind of a unique scenario for a lot of people in the hospitality space. But I want to like dive into what you guys have created as a company, what you created as a brand, and how really that family aspect has really played a big part. And I can tell just by seeing the reviews, and obviously, like I said, you're a Destinationaire winner, so we did a lot of research and going into like all the certain things that you guys are doing and doing review checks and listing checks and all these other things. And just seeing that, I think you guys have done something that has brought in not only you as a family and as a brand, but then as a community. And I want to talk about that and how important that is and kind of what you've learned from doing what you do with these certain properties and property owners and your guests, but then how that really affects your overall community in the local area.
Yeah, so we love bringing people to town. Temecula is a great town. Murrieta, they're both wonderful, wonderful towns, and they're becoming more, people are finding more and more about it. And so on our website, we have like the Jessica's version of Yelp kind of thing. And so it's pretty cool. So, and then we partner with a bunch of wineries and a bunch of restaurants and coffee shops. So, we want to bring people into the local mom and pop places. We want them to come and eat at East Coffee or go to a Kosh winery. The family wineries, the family businesses, that's where we want to keep the money local. And so we take so much pride, and every guest gets a link, and it's all digital. It was interesting. At first, when I first started to get these, they gave me like the wine tasting places, they have these little cards, like business cards, right? Buy one, get ones. They give me a stack of 100, but I had, at the time I had like 10 houses. So I'd have to go to each house, put 10 cards in. By the weekend, they were gone. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I have to think of something, the military, I have to think of a solution for this. And so I'm going to do it digitally. And I went to a couple wineries at first, and they were like, oh, no, we don't do digital. They always have to be on these little card things. And I was like, all right, well, I didn't stop. And that's my tenaciousness. I'm just going to keep going. And so finally I got a couple of wineries that said they would. And so then I just showed what I made for all the other wineries on your phone. And now I have almost every winery that's offering a buy one, get one digitally on your phone. And so now my guests don't have to print anything out. I don't have to go to all the homes all the time to put new cards in. They just have to show their phone, and they get they're honored that discount. So it's kind of cool to bring in the whole community in the aspect of it, so that I know they're going to go to this local place and that local place and benefit. They're really like my friends, so it's nice that I'm able to share that community wealth with everybody.
Exactly. And you kind of become like not like a tour guide, but really just like a guide in general of the local area. You think of like travel agencies that are booking all these trips, and when they're booking your plane and your cruise or your whatever, your hotel, they're like, oh, this is a great spot for dinner. Let's book you a reservation. Boom, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And your whole trip is now planned out. And it sounds like that's pretty much what you guys do. You have that whole opportunity to create that experience.
Yeah, if you want to go on a hot air balloon, we've got that. If you want to go on a horseback riding wine tasting tour, we've got that. If you want to go pet a camel, we got that too.
Dang.
So, there's the ideas are endless. And people sometimes they call and they'll ask us, oh, I'm not sure. And I'm like, okay, Monday you're doing this, Tuesday you're doing this,
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's like, you never think you'd want to pet a camel, but now that there's an option to do it, you're like, why not?
And then at the end of the camel, you get a little chocolate. She makes chocolates too. So you get a camel and you get chocolates. Like,
all right, I'm booking a flight right now. I'm on my way.
Guys, come stay Barefoot Vacation Rentals.
Nice little plug.
Yeah.
I want to go into, because like I said, we met through kind of like Dave Krause and the Rent Responsibly crew and everything that they're doing. What has been some ways that you guys have been advocates in the vacation rental space, whether it's in California or Temecula, or in a global sense of being advocates? And what does an advocate really look like for regulations and policies and just setting the standard for operations in general, as the industry is really growing really quickly, especially with COVID, that we're seeing a huge thrust in, the bad properties kind of getting weeded out, but then, or like bad managers as well. And then the really good ones sticking around, kind of like yourselves and everybody else that won and was nominated for the Destinationaire Award. So I'm kind of curious to learn about what advocacy looks like in that sense of really representing what you guys do.
Well, so I was the president of the Short-Term Rental Alliance group in Temecula. And so we met with the city council members, we met with the mayors, we tried to really advocate for the short-term rental world, if proper regulations with noise monitors and cameras and the proper things in place, we really feel like we can offer the safety for the neighbors and the quiet, noise for the neighbors as well. Unfortunately, the city of Temecula had decided that within the city limits, you're not able to do short-term rentals, but in the county of Temecula, or the county, you're still able to. And then in the city of Murrieta, they're also looking at doing some sort of regulation. The planning department just passed something that they're only going to allow certain zones of homes to be able to do short-term rentals. So all single-family zones, homes would not be able to. So we're working. We're trying to talk with the city council. It hasn't been passed into the city council yet, so we still have some work. We're still working. I messaged about 200 people on Airbnb homeowners, like, hey guys, did you know? And a lot of people just don't know. And so I think with advocacy, it's really spreading the word and sharing and letting people know, and what's going on. And a lot of people don't know about noise monitors. They don't know the importance of cameras. And so once we, express the importance of it, then they will go ahead and use those, and then their neighbors will be happy. And so, and occasionally, unfortunately, we always have those onesie-twosie guests that, just no matter how much you put in there, and that's why you just have to write awful reviews. And, in our business, we do fines. And so that works for the most part for us. If we have to call them after quiet hours to tell them to get in the house, we charge them, and if we have to show up, we charge them more. And if the police are called, we charge them even more, and so we really hope that they manage themselves. And that's a good tactic, I think, for a lot of managers to really instill that, the rules. You have rules when you drive on the freeway, you have rules when you stay in a vacation rental, and you need to abide by them or you get fined. And so that's kind of what we're working with. But with the advocacy, I think it's just so important to get the word out and stress that it's kind of like voting, right? They're like, oh, it's just one vote, it's not going to really matter. No, your one letter does matter. And if you don't send that one letter, you could be the turning point of yay or nay. So I think that's it.
So what can we do as an industry to really, obviously, like we keep mentioning, Dave is really leading the charge on this with Rent Responsibly and how that can really affect local communities as a whole, and then as a global community, as an industry. What can we, is it going to take more, I guess how can we spread the message faster in the sense of getting people educated? Because I think there's a lot of people out there. From what I've seen, my parents, they have vacation rentals and they manage them, and I help them with a lot of stuff and, all this type of stuff. But I think they have these issues and they keep bringing me, oh, why can't we do this? And why is Airbnb blocking this? And we can't see that. And they have all these questions, but they're just not understanding that all the resources are right there, in some sense of kind of like, if you just type it on Google, or like you go to LinkedIn, or you find, other vacation rentals that are doing the same thing. How do we get the message and just the overall information maybe less scattered into one central location and spread that a little bit easier?
Well, I think Rent Responsibly is doing such an amazing job. They have a hub right now that they're working on where you can go and look at all the other regulations. What are things working? And so I think if we really direct everybody to the same location, and I think we need to get the platforms involved too, because not a lot of people do book direct. They do the platforms. And so if we get the platforms involved and let them know, Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, all of them, let them know that, hey, please send this email out. Let people know the importance of this. And if they're having issues, they can come and find but have one source. And so I can't tip my hat off enough to Rent Responsibly and how amazing that team is, putting everything together and getting all of us together, all of our advocacy team members, and being able to throw ideas, because why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to?
Exactly. Yeah. And Dave is a big fan of the Ford Model T. And so, it's such a good one. If you guys are listening to the episode and you don't know what that is, I'll link the episode with Dave on here, but it's really great. He goes into really good detail about what that is and how it applies to this. But
you have to listen to it. And then I've used that actually a couple times in city hall meetings, talking. And I'm just going to go really quick, just in case you guys don't listen to it, because you all should. But it's really cool, because when the first car was built, there wasn't rules or regulations or anything. No seatbelts, no stoplights. And over time, rules and regulations started coming in place as they deemed necessary. And short-term rentals is fairly new. And so now it's important that we have rules and regulations in place as well. And so using that analogy has opened so many people's eyes. So
Yeah.
good job.
Exactly. And then, of course, I want to go into, because you mentioned it a few times, noise monitoring, cameras, that type of stuff. What have you seen play a role in your business and just kind of overall like day-to-day life with having listings on multiple platforms, booking direct, and the effect of transparency? So like, how does transparency play a role for you communicating to your guests? Like, what is the best way for you or any other managers listening today that they could take away from this episode and be like, okay, how can I be more transparent in my business and the way I'm communicating with my guests?
So we have it in like about, I'd say 4 or 5 different locations of our rules. We have it in our listings saying our noise monitors, we have them cameras, quiet hours. We say everybody, our city council, our city our city regulations and our county regulations all say 10 o'clock. You have to be inside. But for our business, we do 9:45. That gives me a 15-minute buffer in case people aren't following the rules. I can get them all in the house prior to lights out. And it's not necessarily lights out, it's doors shut, and you're in the house. And it doesn't matter if you're coming in and going, that's fine, but I just don't know loitering around the house. We want our neighbors to get a good night's sleep. And so with the noise monitors, they have been such a huge deterrence. And that there's noise monitors, so they limit themselves. And I guess with the fines as well, it helps that they know, like, and some people are a little uncomfortable. They're like, oh, I don't really know about it. And so I explain it to them. And, it has to be steady for 2 minutes. It can't, a dog barking or a baby crying is not going to set it off. You're having loud noise if this thing goes off. And if it goes off, we have a problem. So just be respectful. And so it's in our listing. It's in our contract. It's on every door leaving the house, and it's in our message strand that we send to them in our messages. So there's really, we try to be so blatant, obvious of what the rules are, that if someone doesn't follow them, it's blatant. It's not I didn't know. There's no excuse for I didn't know, because
Yeah.
it's there.
No, agreed. And I think that's really, really key, because I've learned this from my experience in the hotel world, where like maybe we have a small resort fee, and if we're not at the front desk not talking about it, they didn't see it online, they didn't see it on this, like, and then all of a sudden they get their final bill at checkout and they're like, what the heck, why do I have a $50 charge for a resort fee that I didn't even know about? And it's like, well, we have a resort fee there. Now you know. Now you know. But like, it's like, exactly. But then it's funny, because then after that, like after enough complaints, you're like, hey, you go to your manager or whatever and say, we got to properly do this. Let's put a sign at the front desk. Let's have a thing pop up on the website. Let's do this, X, Y, and Z. When they're checking in, make sure that we talk about their charges, and like they see the rate and they see their things one more time. And it just kind of comes back to, it probably gets tiring, having to over communicate and have to repeat and educate the same thing over and over again. But the more you do it, the more consistent it is, kind of like having it on the doors and in your messages and in the listing and in the contract. The more consistent it is, the easier it will get as time goes on, because now guests, I think this is going to play a huge role as we, recover from COVID and everything going on, is that the more consistent and across the board we are as a whole community, as a whole industry, whether you're in Temecula or Florida or Washington or North Carolina, Mexico. Yeah, exactly. The more standardized we are across the board, and you communicate these standards and really set that bar, the more the guest and the traveler and anybody occupying space will get used to it, and it'll become standard. It'll become expected.
And that's one thing that we struggle with right now, is like, well, the house down the street didn't do that.
Yeah.
They're not telling us to come in at 10. Well, I don't know how long that house is going to be there if they keep that keep that going. Mm-hmm. But if you do stay with us, these are the rules. You know them up front prior to listing, or, prior to booking. So, but yeah, I think if everybody had that same mentality of neighbor first, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that we would by far be more accepted and more wanted in these communities. So
Yeah. And have you guys seen any issues with neighbors like that are just hating and never want vacation rentals, and kind of like how have you dealt with that if you have?
yeah, actually, unfortunately, my neighbor for the house that I own in Murrieta, um, we have each other's phone numbers, and so I found out on an app, like a social media app thing. My husband actually was like, Jess, they're saying your name in here. And I was like, what? And so I looked it up and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I immediately reached out and I was like, guys, you have my number. Like, if there's anything going on, please, please, please contact me. Let me know. And they were pretty hostile, pretty irritated. And I get it. I mean, if you were sitting on this irritation for, a month or two, not saying anything, how is anything going to get fixed? It's going to be the same, And so the irritation was that the fence was too low, that it's a 6-foot fence, but people on my side could look over onto their fence. So within 2 weeks, we raised the fence up 3 feet, and made sure that it was, and then they were upset that the trash cans were out closer to the street. So we moved those back in and it's like, all you have to do is communicate and let us know there's an issue. And we don't want to make you upset. That's the last thing we want to do. We want to make sure that everyone's good and everyone's having a good time, but within respect and within reason. So it's been a little difficult and we've been trying to rework that relationship, but unfortunately, sometimes you just can't, as much as you would love to please everybody, they were like, we don't want anybody out in the pool until 11 in the morning. Like,
that's not going to happen.
We can do it with reason. You want the fence up? I'll put the fence up.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we also put in, when I met Dave showed me this thing. He had a decibel reader, a visual decibel reader.
Oh, cool.
And so we just purchased one and my husband's building a box for it. So it's waterproof, water resistant from the top. And then a clock so that everyone has no excuse of what time it is. And so we're going to put that in the backyard where people can visually see the decibels and visually see the time. And that way there's one more way of not having an excuse.
So now you have 5 ways. 5.
No excuses at this point.
You just check, like, missed the 3 boxes. Okay, you're out pretty much. Is what it'll be. Well, I think that's pretty incredible. And so to kind of like wrap up the episode and go into what you've been doing, because like I told you pre-recording, the Destinationaire Award was really created to highlight people that are really just getting through this whole craziness that we're in, really setting the standard, a good example, getting creative, having the community involved, creating that experience, really just representing, again, that standard and the overall concept of Destinationaire, creating a destination that most people wouldn't think is a destination. And again, setting the bar high with it. And so with pre-COVID and now in the middle and the thick of COVID, what's been like maybe the top 2 to 3 things that you've had to pivot and do in order to create that that drive to continue forward through the end of the light at the end of the tunnel type deal?
We definitely see the light. And so, and we've always seen it. And so that's why we've just always been like looking forward to go. But so one thing we did is when all the restaurants were closed, we contacted a bunch of restaurants and we had them delivering food to our houses. And so we would you couldn't go to the experience, but we would have the experience brought to you. We partnered with like a wine and art type of gal. And so she would drop off the canvases and all the paints and stuff in front of the door, no contact. And then she'd get on a video thing and she'd explain how to paint while people were painting in the house.
Wow.
And so we really wanted to bring that experience there. There's no reason. I mean, you can only want to be in your own 4 walls for so long until you lose your mind. And,
Yeah, so I think we all feel that.
Yeah. Why not go to a house that has a pool? You can enjoy the pool in the daytime and you can go and do art and wine in the house via, an iPad. And so we did those. And then we also partnered with a bunch of different, because we had to figure out how we're going to stay in business. And so we didn't know how long it was going to last. All the weddings in town have still been shut down. So, and that was a major bringing of people. That was a major source of revenue. So we partnered with a surrogate company and a bunch of insurance companies as well. And that really helped during that lull time where we weren't making as much, we would get people who were having babies or people who had fires or floods and things like that. And that really helped keep us rolling through the process. But now the wineries are back open, weddings aren't happening, but people are they're so sick and tired of their home. They want to get away. And now that you can homeschool from anywhere, people are going to wineries and homeschooling at wineries, don't drink and drive.
I was gonna say, don't drink in school, but whatever.
You got to be 21.
That's awesome.
And you can go be sitting at your table having a glass of wine, and so it's opened up a lot more. It seems as though it might even be more busy now, being that people are, you can't go to the movies, you can't go do all these things. In California, we're so locked down that wineries are open as long as they serve food. So
yeah, hey, food and wine, can't complain with that.
Food and wine, sign me up. Yeah.
Well, do you see this stuff continuing after COVID's kind of done, or do you see us kind of going back to regular times where you don't have to worry about contactless and masks and all the other things that kind of brought up, and like people getting the experience outside of the home now? Or do you see that kind of continuing on afterwards?
I pray to God that this whole mask thing doesn't keep going on. That's my personal opinion. But I think that with everyone's fear, they're not going to really want to go to maybe a hotel, that fear of staying in. And nothing's wrong with hotels. Everybody's got their own fit and fancy, but it's more of a shared type of space. When you're in a home, you have your own space. It's been cleaned. Our cleaners are all certified to clean based off the CDC standards. So
with the cleaning certification. Yeah.
You gotta have it.
Gotta have it.
Yeah. And so if you there's more of a safety feel of the vacation rental aspect, that you're not going to be walking past somebody who might potentially have it. So I think that as I've seen, it seems as though more people are actually choosing and opting to do short-term rentals rather than hotels for that reason. So I'm hoping that this just continues on this trajectory, and we do well. So
agreed. And I think all my listeners know that I'm 1 foot in the hotel world, 1 foot in the vacation rental world. So I agree with you. I think it's definitely, when it comes to like that common space thing, but I see the hotels shifting super quick to get rid of kind of like a lobby feel and waiting in line for keys and kind of, then maybe instead of growing buildings up, they're going to go horizontal and spread out kind of.
And more like a short-term rental aspect. We have a couple hotels up in wine country that are opening that have that Airbnb short-term rental feel to it, So I think that's kind of the path that we're on, is everything's going to go more in that direction.
Agreed. So. Yeah. The new age of hospitality and accommodation and lodging will be born from this. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Well, Jessica, again,
we're at the right place at the right time, God willing, that's what happens. So
yeah, right place, right time with the right people. So that's
And that's the important part too. Yeah,
exactly. Well, again, it's been a real big pleasure to have you on. I know we didn't debut your first episode, but this episode really is going to show just like the light and the major perseverance, I think, with vacation rental managers and owners and just the overall industry as a whole. It's really exciting to see. Congratulations again on the change of the last name and being married. Super exciting. And just glad to see that you guys are thriving and, of course, healthy and safe and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Will. I really appreciate you taking me on, and thank you for the award too. It's very much an honor. Thank you.
Of course. My pleasure. Well, we'll keep in touch. And for all the Slick Talkers out there that are listening, obviously look at the show notes. Everything's going to be linked from the girls' YouTube channel to the website to Rent Responsibly and Noise Aware and all these things that we're going to tag in here. We talked about a lot. So again, thank you so much, Jessica. And we will talk again very soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you two places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.